brake bias. Most sim racers think they understand it. Move it rearward for more rotation. Move it forward for more stability. And that's true, but it's also a shallow and superficial version. Because brake bias is not just a braking setting, it's one of the biggest constraints in your entire car setup. So when people say, just move the brake bias backwards for more rotation, that is only explaining rotation under braking. What if I don't have any rotation and I have too much rotation under the braking? My name is Arnoud. I've been sim racing for years, have built hundreds and hundreds of car setups, created the Art of Car Setups, the ultimate GT3 car setup guide, and in this video we'll go mile deep into brake bias setting, how it affects your whole car setup, how it affects your confidence, how it affects freaking everything in your builds. Let's get into it. Whenever you hit the brakes, the pressure of the brakes is being separated to the front and rear axle, and that is the brake bias. So if I start increasing this value, you'll see that 55% of that force goes to the front and 45% goes to the rear. But that doesn't tell you anything, does it? Let's go deep here. So imagine a grip circle, and this means what a tire can do while it's accelerating, braking, and cornering. And as soon a tire leaves the grip circle, we have no grip, okay? So when we hit the brakes fully and we have too much braking pressure, we start to lock up and the tires go outside of the grip circle. So if we have a perfect balanced brake bias, so imagine it's like 50-50 and we hit the brakes in a hard braking zone and we might, I don't know, corner the car a little bit. And the idea you want is that you have these tires as close to the grip loss limit as possible. When you change brake bias to the rear, you start creating an environment that the rears leave the grip circle, so you spin. And when you increase it, you push the rear tires in the grip circle, so the fronts will lock up. Here's also a nuance, like how much slip there will be and when the tires completely give up. But the general idea is that you want these tires on the limit, because that means we are fastest. You know, if we have one tire all the way up here, we are typically slower because we're not utilizing the tire. That's the main point. So brake bias gives us the setting to change this. I got some great reviews on this Lexus pack, so this low downforce 3.6, and it has a brake bias of 50-50, all right? But what if I just search up a video or I'm driving the race and I'm thinking to myself, I want to lower this value because I want more rotation under the braking. Okay, let's do that right now. So we have the brake bias of 45, we enter this corner. And I wanted to trail brake a little bit and I lose control, all right? Let's imagine that would be the case. I have this brake bias and it's gonna be very skill dependent. You know, you got like super fast and like really sharp people that can manage this properly. This might not be too much, but maybe for you it's too much. So let's go back. Well, of course I spun it on that corner because the brake bias is too aggressive. But what if it was the other way around? Let's say you got great balance, but you got understeer on a lot of other parts on track. We are shifting brake bias to 55-45. Now, take note, this is a massive change, okay? This is a massive brake bias change. It's like, this is not something I would recommend, but it's just to prove a point. So here we are, the same corner again. I'm gonna be even more aggressive on the trailing. And now I understeer out of the corner. All right, and this is the point of the video, because there is an element of understeer in the car that I actually want. But why? So when I shift brake bias so much forward, I can do a lot of tweaks on the car all of a sudden that previously were not possible with a low brake bias. And why is this important? It opens up an opportunity to get more rear ride height. That creates rotation in fast corners. If I have a too low brake bias, then I cannot do this, because then I will spin it on that example, what I showed you earlier. But now I can increase it. That's not the only thing. I could maybe lower the front springs, so we have more bite on the mid corner, and maybe on the curbs it might be a bit more compliant. We can lower the rear rebound dampening, meaning we allow the car to pitch faster because we're not limited by this low brake bias making us spin all of a sudden. And now we can maybe have a more forward-facing aero shift. Same goes for the slow bump. Maybe we can allow the car to pitch faster to get more rotation without spinning. Then we could also lower the front anti-roll bar for more bite. All right? So imagine a world, and by the way, if you're on a different car, maybe you can lower the rear wing even, which will give you more top speed. And all of these changes I'm just explaining to you were impossible for you with a low brake bias, because it limits how soft you can make your front axle, how the braking behavior and the rake changes will be, how the damper settings need to be stiffened up, and all of these changes could just make you so much slower. But you do have great rotation under braking. So that's a little bit of the idea, like how one brake bias setting can completely change the whole car. So how can you tune cars then differently than you would do with only the brake bias? So for instance, when you are tuning a car and you're hitting your lap time limit, which tends to happen to most of us, then instead of lowering the brake bias and spinning it, which might happen, you increase the brake bias. So let's say you were on 50-50 like this setup, and now you're gonna do a little bit more. Let's say you do 55. You go out on track again. You will find elements of understeer in the car. To keep it very simple, increase the rear ride height first. Right? Test it out, see what happens. Maybe you still have understeer, then you can soften the brake, the anti-roll bar, for instance, front anti-roll bar. You could even stiffen up rear springs as well, you know? And now you get a different balance and a different feel in the car. I'm not saying it's better or this is the meta, but this is just giving you options, you know? Then drive your laps, and then you can always bring it back slowly when you're testing it out. And yeah, you end up with these different settings. But there's way more to it than this. Let's keep going. A big objection people might have is like, listen, if I have so much front brake bias, then I'm gonna heat up my front tires more because the front discs will get hotter and that heat radiates into the tire. And that's a valid point. And you can see it over here. You can see that the tire carcass temperature on the front right is 2 degrees higher. And when you're looking at tire wear, I don't like, and obviously this is like a few laps recording only, but I don't see a lot of wear difference here. So we have more heat, yes. But heat does not only come from just the heat from the braking discs, because if I drive the car differently and I don't have to steer so much, then I'm also gonna be reducing my tire heat and wear. So for instance, I'm gonna show you a quick example of this 3.6 low downforce and the B levels. And for everyone who gotten these packages, I'm adding B levels left and right, just to give you more flavor, just to add more value to this pack. So an example, we load up this one and we compare this one, and we're gonna have a look on the compared setup. So you can see we have on the compared setup a way more forward facing brake bias. We're gonna have more rake. We're gonna have different damper settings, and we're gonna have a little bit less anti-roll bar. So let's look at the laps and show you how this car is just like a different spice, you know? If you like Mexican food or Chinese food, but it's still food. No, maybe that's a bad joke, I don't know. Whatever. When I did these laps and tests and examples, first I drove it with the 50% brake bias on the original low downforce level 3 setup, and now I'm driving it with the B level setup, which has more brake bias, softer front axle, more rake. And the main difference between these two setups is that obviously I'm gonna have more stability under braking, but it's offset with the front suspension changes. So even though I'm kind of losing a tiny bit on entries, I got more freedom on the exits over here. And it's not a lot, but it's something you carry with you every time you exit the corner. And the main purpose of this example is not to show you that these laps are wildly different, but it's just a different approach in how you drive the car. And you might really want to enjoy the car like this. Now, I let it stay on 55% to make the example in the telemetry. Obviously, when you have a little bit of that understeer still on the entries, you could still lower the brake bias. But another point I want to make here is because I have a front or soft axle, the mid and exit, I don't have to steer so much and I go on throttle earlier. So in this example, I'm actually gaining a little bit because I don't have to steer so much when I'm exiting the corner, and that makes me quicker. And that's also the point I want to make about the tire heat. Yes, the brake discs will radiate heat to the front tires, but if I don't have to steer so much on exit and on mid corner, I might have still a reduction in tire temperatures, but also in tire wear. So this is a little bit how you can think about brake bias had such a depth and such a lot of meaning in how the rest of the car setup is shaped up. And yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show you. Now, these laps were on like 50% fuel and a medium grip, so I think there's definitely a 42 or a mid 42 lap time possible. Let's say the quali, for instance. There's still one question that remains. Does more forward or backward brake bias improve the overall stopping power on the brakes? And let me know in the comments what you think, because I don't really see that as a difference. I didn't see like, okay, now I need to brake like 20 meters earlier with the new brake bias. That is not what I found. So now, if you want to build your car setups for GT3 cars, I highly recommend this video because that will explain a system with wing settings, with different ride height settings. And if you marry that video with this one, then you'll build proper car setups, sir. Click it. That one. It's over here. People like this video. I have good comments on this video. See you there.